The sun was dipping low behind the jagged silhouette of Brookvale City as Ethan Cole, a weary 36-year-old single father, closed the creaking corrugated door of his auto repair shop for the night, the metallic clang echoing through the near-empty industrial street where only distant traffic and a flickering streetlight kept the evening alive. His daughter, Lily, just 7 years old, small fingers clutching her worn-out sketchbook, walked silently beside him, too silently, Ethan realized, for the child who usually hummed little songs when the day neared its end, and the unease in his chest solidified the moment he caught the distant glare of floodlights from the private jet terminal across the road, just barely visible through the chain-link fencing. He unlocked their rusted blue pickup truck and was about to lift Lily inside when she suddenly froze, her pupils dilating as though she had seen a ghost. "Daddy, no," she whispered in a voice that did not sound like hers. Breath trembling, eyes wide with a terror so raw that Ethan's heartbeat stuttered before she even turned her gaze to point at the airstrip beyond the fence where a sleek silver Gulfstream G800 waited with its engines beginning to power up, the deep hum vibrating in the air like a warning drum, and from the black limousine that had just pulled up, out stepped Alexander Ward, the billionaire investor whose face lived on every finance magazine and television broadcast, recognized instantly by the sharp scar over his left eyebrow that even Lily had drawn from memory 2 weeks earlier when she woke screaming from a nightmare describing that exact jet, the burning sky, the falling metal, the explosion over the bay, the cameras still rolling as the world watched him die. Ethan had written it off then as trauma-fueled imagination after Lily's mother's passing, a grief hallucination at worst. But now as she clutched his arm with both hands hard enough to hurt and begged, "Daddy, you have to stop him. He's going to die." He didn't hesitate, didn't think of trespassing laws or billionaire security or the fact that empty pockets could never afford a lawyer, because a father's instinct moves faster than logic when his child shakes with fear, and he scooped her into his arms and ran, vaulting over the fence line, boots slamming the tarmac, voices shouting from every direction as 2 suited guards sprinted toward them, hands reaching for weapons or radios he didn't care to know. Because all Ethan could do was scream at the top of his lungs with every ounce of life and desperation inside him, ***, Alexander Ward, don't get on that jet, it's going to explode. And in that split second before he was tackled to the ground and Lily cried out in terror, the engines roared louder, the billionaire turned sharply toward the voice that shouldn't exist, and everything in the universe paused, as though fate itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Ethan hit the ground hard as 2 armed security guards pinned him against the icy tarmac, their boots grinding into his shoulder while Lily screamed for them to stop, but even as pain shot through his arm, his eyes were fixed desperately on Alexander Ward, who had frozen mid-step at the base of the jet's staircase, frowning in disbelief as a frantic, grease-stained mechanic was being restrained like a madman while screaming his name, not begging for money or a favor but warning of death. "Sir, please, you don't understand. It's going to explode." Ethan shouted hoarsely, straining against the guard's grip, and Alexander, who had survived boardroom wars, assassination rumors, and cyber attacks, was not a man easily rattled, yet something in the child's face, tear-streaked and pleading, made him hesitate. He glanced toward her as she broke free from another guard and ran toward him, her small voice tremoring, "Please, you'll burn, everyone on the plane will burn." And before the guards could stop her, she pointed directly at the underside of the left engine with a terror that felt remembered, not imagined, and in that same instant, one of Alexander's avionics engineers sprinted into view from the maintenance bay, shouting breathlessly, "Stop boarding. Cut the auxiliary flow, now, as a spark violently erupted beneath the fuselage, followed by a sharp burst of black smoke that sent technicians scrambling with extinguishers, adrenaline slamming through every witness on the field. The guards immediately released Ethan as if he were radioactive, while Alexander slowly lowered his foot from the jet's ladder, his face drained of its trademark calculated composure, eyes fixed on the father and child as though trying to solve an equation God himself had written. The jet's systems were shut down instantly, and air traffic control temporarily halted nearby takeoff clearances as more engineers swarmed beneath the aircraft, one of them emerging pale and shaken. "Sir, the fuel pressure line was cracked. If we'd lifted off, the combustion chamber would have blown midair," he stammered, confirming every detail Lily had described days ago in her nightmare. Down to the timing and the fire swallowing the sky, a hush fell over the runway, not Of chaos, but of stunned reality. Ethan, panting, still on his knees, looked up slowly at the billionaire now walking toward him with measured steps, his gaze sharp but strangely human, as if a man long shielded by power had just tasted mortality for the first time. Lily clung to Ethan's arm, tears still glistening, her voice now barely above a whisper. "I tried to stop it, Daddy. I tried," and that was the moment Alexander Ward, who believed in algorithms and numbers but never fate, faithfully extended a hand, not to have Ethan arrested, but to help him rise, his words quiet yet heavy as stone. "You just saved my life. Now you're going to explain how." The private terminal's conference lounge, normally a fortress of polished glass, marble flooring, and executive silence, felt strangely smaller as Alexander Ward sat across from Ethan and Lily, not as an untouchable billionaire but as a man trying to process the fact that he had quite literally been pulled back from death seconds before it happened. Ethan, still tense and guarded, his knuckles scraped and shirt stained with oil and dust, kept a protective arm around Lily, whose wide eyes scanned every movement in the room as though the air itself might shift at any second. A security detail stood nearby but waited, not acting, because even they sensed this was no ordinary situation, and Alexander, disciplined, strategic, a man known for speaking only when necessary, studied the quiet little girl with the reverence one would normally reserve for ancient prophecy. "How did you know?" he asked softly, not mockingly, not dismissively, but with the quiet urgency of a man who understood the difference between coincidence and impossibility. And Ethan opened his mouth but paused, torn, because the truth, as impossible as it sounded, was not his to give, and before he could speak, Lily whispered, not looking at anyone, simply stating what she saw in her mind as though reading from a forgotten memory. "I saw you die, 2 weeks ago, in my sleep. I saw fire behind you and people screaming. I heard your voice say the world would hear your last words today, and then everything fell apart." Silence wrapped the room like ice, and for the first time in his life, Alexander Ward, a man worshipped by markets, feared by governments, looked genuinely shaken, not because a child had spoken of death, but because she had quoted what he intended to say in his speech that very night, word for word. Ethan saw his reaction, his stiff inhale, and finally spoke, a low grave tone filled with shame, fear, and love. "Her mother died last year, hit and run." Lily barely spoke for months, then the dream started, and everything she saw, it came true. Alexander leaned back slowly, the dots connecting like silent thunder in his mind: death, fate, timing, enemy, and with a decision made in silence, he finally said what Ethan least expected: "Come with me, work under me, both of you, from today forward, you don't leave my side." Ethan stiffened. "Sir, we're not, this is not charity," Alexander interjected sharply, "this is strategy, because someone planned for me to die tonight, and your daughter just told me I wasn't meant to." Then his voice dropped lower, colder, "and I need to know if she is warning me of what's next, or if she is changing it." Lily looked up at him then, and with absolute calm, said only one thing: "This isn't over." And Alexander Ward, a man who controlled the world with data, believed her instantly. The limousine moved through Brookvale City like a silent shadow as the night deepened, skyscrapers glinting beneath neon reflections and the restless hum of a metropolis that never truly slept. Yet inside the vehicle reigned a heavy silence, the air thick with a foreboding only Lily seemed to fully understand. She sat between Ethan and Alexander like a small prophet carrying a storm inside her chest, her fingers restlessly tracing invisible patterns against the fogged-up window as if trying to draw the future before it arrived. And Alexander, jaw tense, mind racing, had cancelled his global keynote in seconds, issuing an emergency security lockdown across Ward Enterprises. No questions, no excuses, because after seeing his jet seconds away from midair combustion, he no longer needed proof. Survival was enough. "Is it over?" Ethan asked quietly, his voice raw, his calloused hand gently covering Lily's, hoping she would say yes, hoping this was the end of her suffering, the end of the visions. But Lily did not blink, did not even look at him, her voice soft but chilling as she replied, "No, the fire was only the beginning." And as if summoned by her words, the city lights flickered, once, twice, then died, plunging Brookvale into a sudden pulse of midnight blackout that silenced even the traffic, and for a heartbeat the world felt paralyzed. Just before a distant, thunderous shockwave boomed through the skyline, followed by a shimmer of raining glass as explosions erupted from the top floors of 3 Ward Enterprises towers, not outward like bombs, but inward, a calculated structural implosion designed to erase data and lives in seconds, and Alexander, wide-eyed, instantly understood, this was an attack, not fate. The limousine veered sharply into cover behind an underpass as his driver shouted updates through his earpiece. Systems compromised, emergency protocols overridden, unknown infiltrators inside their cyber defenses. But Alexander no longer heard the words, because in the reflection of the window, Lily was already staring into the direction of the explosions. Not afraid, waiting, and that frightened him more than the destruction itself. "They're coming for you," she said softly, as if narrating an unfolding prophecy rather than fearing it. "They planned the jet, but they knew I stopped it, so now they will hunt us both." Ethan instinctively pulled her closer, heart pounding, as Alexander finally understood the magnitude of the moment. This little girl did not just save him, she had just declared war on the unseen enemy already moving against them, and his next words were not those of a billionaire, but of a man who had chosen his side. "Then from this moment," he said quietly, his voice steady with resolve, eyes locked on hers, "you don't face them alone, we fight back together." And that was the night Brookvale's most powerful man, and a silent 7-year-old child, became the world's most unpredictable alliance, against a future even she had not fully seen.